PG&E's monopoly territory is home to 17 million people.
Families already struggle to pay their bills.
PG&E was convicted of 91 felonies.
Really? I mean, what's next?
Greybeard Talks Solar. He is SolarWise.
Welcome to the Greybeard Talks Solar YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. Well, this is where we talk about everything related to solar, and so please like, share, and subscribe if you're so inclined to do so. We very much appreciate you spreading the solar word, spreading the information, sharing the knowledge, and specifically sharing the wisdom. So let's jump into it today. Today, I'm going to be talking about the two biggest mistakes that homeowners make in solar. And these are doozies. These are mistakes that cost you quite a bit of money long-term relative to the solar equation. Happens all of the time. In fact, just earlier today, I had a conversation with a homeowner that was about to make one of these mistakes. And so I had to go through it, which was the prompting for this particular video series that we're going to talk about. So in solar, the biggest mistake that I often seen made is undersizing the system, not specifically accounting for how much usage you've had throughout the year. So let me give you some context, all right? So I had a conversation with a homeowner, and they said, hey, Greybeard, listen, so here's the thing. I kind of want to understand, what one of these programs is going to cost me. So I got a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. It's 1,800 square foot. How much is solar going to be? And while I appreciate the information share, I did let this particular gentleman know that effectively the information he shared with me is not really valuable relative to the solar equation. It's valuable to get an approximate guess, but certainly not valuable in terms of accuracy, true, real, actionable numbers. And here's the reason why. When you think about energy consumption, it's highly personal and highly situationally different from one house to another. So for example, I can take same house built by the same builder at the same time on the same side of the street. Okay. So think tract home, two houses, exactly the same street, same everything. And literally one house could be using twice as much energy as another. Okay. And the reason why is what time to use the energy. How much energy are you using? How many people are in the house? What are your temperature preferences in the summer, in the winter? Temperature preferences are a big thing. Do you like the house to be, 72 degrees in the summer when it's 100 plus outside? In which case you're going to use a lot more energy than somebody that's okay with it being 80 degrees. Because I've actually been in quite a few houses in the summer where within 5-10 minutes of being in the house, I was sweating, just because people couldn't or didn't want to afford the amount of cost that would come with that energy bill if they used what they actually preferred. So temperature preferences are a big thing. The other thing that's really material in the solar equation is when you use energy. So, somebody could say to me, well, how much is solar going to cost me? I got, my bill's like $500 with PG&E or something along those lines. And that is not really all telling information either, because PG&E has different tiers and different rates. They have a base tier for this amount of energy you use. You get special pricing, and then you hit into tier 1, tier 2, and they have these escalations, kind of like almost like they penalize you if you use a lot more energy. So just seeing an actual bill amount doesn't usually help me, because I don't know if someone's using tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 kind of energy, right? So Here's the best suggestion that I can make to give you the most amount of accuracy if you were trying to figure out how big of a solar system you need. Because the opposite of this, so the reason I'm having this discussion and why it's one of the biggest mistakes I see made is, and it isn't usually overproducing, it's usually underproducing. The mistake is if you don't size the system accurately, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to be producing more energy than what you need, in which case some of it's being wasted, because PG&E does not pay you what you are generating in terms of a fair price for that energy. So you're going to either pay more in the energy generation and waste it, or what's going to end up happening is you actually have less generation and you're more exposed now to the utility. So you go through all this trouble, all this process of getting solar onto your house, and then all of a sudden you realize that the system is smaller than what your energy needs are, and now you're exposed to the utility again, and that can be really, really frustrating to folks, really annoying. So getting the system to be the right size is really paramount in the solar equation. And so here's what we do. There is an 800 number, a dedicated 800 number that PG&E has, where you don't have to wait 50 minutes, an hour to talk to a live human, but it's an automated phone tree. It's their solar line at PG&E, and I'm using PG&E as an example. You could be at a different utility, but call the utility. With PG&E, there is a dedicated solar line. You can navigate this tree, and usually in about 3 minutes, we can get the information that we really need that's critical to the equation. And the information that you're looking for effectively is the itemized net kilowatt hour consumption for you and your household for that particular month, okay? And then the corresponding cost of that particular bill for that amount of consumption, right? So this automated phone tree at PG&E that you phone and we can call, it usually takes us 2-3 minutes to get the information, will spit out each month going back 12. So it's going to look back from the time we called to the most recent bill back 12 months, right? And it's going to itemize the kilowatt hour and the cost. And so by the time we're done with the call, we can add up the total amount of consumption by you and your family in your home. And then we can see a corresponding cost associated with that consumption. And what we'll do is we'll take the cost of the energy that you bought, divide that by the energy to kind of get your rough estimate cost per kilowatt hour. So in PG&E territory, which I'm very familiar with these numbers, that usually is somewhere between, I would say, 40 and 60 cents. Let's say it's 50 cents a kilowatt hour. That's what you're coming in at for the energy that you're buying based on all the tiers, the time of use, all that kind of stuff. That's your average cost per kilowatt hour, right? So based on that now we have real numbers of what you've been consuming and paying with the utility for that energy consumption. The next part of the equation is, do you expect to use more energy at any point in the future because of a material change in how you live life in that house? So for example, if you start, let's say, charging an electric vehicle because you bought a new car, that would be a significant increase in consumption. We'd want to know about that. If it's 2 years out or less and you're pretty certain about it, definitely we would want to factor that into how to size the solar system properly. Adding a pool, adding a spa, adding another family member that's going to live with you, adding an accessory dwelling unit, anything that would either, in a meaningful way, increase the amount of energy that you're using or decrease the amount of energy that you're using. We would definitely want to be aware of that in, having this discussion about the right size of a system. So let's say, for example, we uncover that you're using 12,000 kilowatt hours of energy a year. But you've started to moderate your usage to some degree because of cost concerns, meaning that you're living with temperatures in the summer that are hotter than what you'd really like, and then maybe temperatures in the winter that are colder than what you'd really like, but you just don't want to, get that PG&E bill that's outrageous. So under that premise, we would then ask you if it's going to be meaningfully cheaper cost for you with solar, which it always is. Would you want to have the benefit of even more energy? Would you want to be able to consume more energy? Would you want to have some, energy elbow room to some degree? And if so, we definitely would account for that. 10%, 15%, 20%, depending on the circumstance. Just a rough rule of thumb on electric vehicle charging, for every 10,000 miles that you would charge and drive at home, or drive out and about and then charge at home, you're going to add about 3,100 kilowatt hours of energy consumption to your profile at your house consumption. So that's just a rough rule of thumb, 10,000, 3,100 kilowatt hours. But once we figured out that sizing, then now we can kind of back into whatever the solution is going to be SolarWise. You want to buy a system, you want to finance a system, you want to lease, you want a power purchase program. We can then start having some actionable numbers because we'll know what your energy usage is. We've asked you some questions about the property and property specific concerns and the situation there. And then we're asking you about what you try to accomplish. And so big mistake number one is not properly sizing the solar system to generate the right amount of energy for either now or in the future based on what you're currently consuming. So you really have to dig into it and have accurate information. So the big mistake I've seen sometimes happen is people do this quick in my industry. I've seen young green folks, we'll call them, young to solar. They'll grab a recent utility bill from April for you, multiply that times 12, and that is not accurate. That you definitely want to stay away from anybody that's assuming or guessing at how much energy you're going to use. Now, one last point I want to make here. What happens if you don't or can't have that accurate information? What happens if you don't have a year's worth of information? Which is either going to occur because you bought a brand new house or you bought somebody else's house and you don't have their usage history from PG&E or the other utilities. So in that kind of a situation, here's the closest that we can get. If you want to be somewhat accurate, and I would say 80% accurate, then you can take 4 watts per square foot. That's what the size of your house would matter. If you multiply your square footage times 4 watts, that will give us the base size. So let's say you got a 2,000 square foot house. 4 watts a square foot, that'd be 8,000 watt system or an 8 kW system. So that effectively is a pretty good estimation. If you use a lot of energy in the evening time, you might want to bias it towards 5 watts a square foot. But that's only on new construction or when you've bought somebody else's house and we don't have any history of your usage, okay? But let's get on to mistake number 2 because I don't want to not talk about this. The second biggest mistake that I've seen is not accounting for proper battery storage. So in solar today, especially in California, NEM 3, net energy metering 3.0, if you send energy to the utility, they're going to give you 25 cents on the dollar. So effectively sending energy to the utility is wasting it as well. So you want to store it in the batteries. And the number and amount of batteries is where I see a lot of mistakes being made because batteries are decently expensive, right? And so people have already got that maybe predisposition to not want to have more of them just because they're going to trigger a greater cost of the install. But I think that's short-sighted thinking because think of the batteries as your biggest hedge against darkness and nighttime. Because the utility doesn't pay you a ton of money for excess energy. They pay you 25 cents on the dollar for any energy you send to them. Then every evening you'd be substantially exposed to the utility because obviously they haven't figured out how to generate energy from moonlight yet. So you can't take moonlight and use it to, power your solar panels, right? So every time it's dark, now you're going to be pulling from the utility if you don't have a store of energy in the batteries. So the batteries really become the critical component to bridging darkness, bridging sundown when the solar system stops working with sun up and pushing as much energy or storing as much energy to push into the house as possible. And so think about it this way. If you're a heavy nighttime user, then you would want to definitely bias towards more battery storage to be able to bridge more darkness. So for example, in the summer, you're only bridging about 8 hours of darkness, right? But in the winter, you're bridging up to 16 hours of darkness. So the number of batteries that you have really matters. And so here's a pro tip, rough rule of thumb, okay? Not exact, but a rough rule of thumb. Whatever the size of the solar system is, for example, 8 kW, 10 kW system, okay? Whatever the size of the system is, 10,000 watts, 8,000 watts, you basically would want to have at least that amount of storage in a battery as well. So for example, if you've got an 8 kW system, you definitely want to have at least 10 kW of battery storage. If you go up to a 20 kW system, then you definitely want to have 20 kW. Or think of it this way. Roughly every 7 to 10 panels, you would want to have a battery, at least a 5,000 watt storage capable battery to go along with the system. That's the rough rule of thumb, 7 to 10 panels. So if you've got 40 panels, then definitely you might want to consider, 4 or 5 batteries. If you've got 20 panel system, then maybe you can do with 2 or 3. But it's rough rule of thumb. 7 would be for heavy nighttime users. 10 would be for, let's say, a retired couple. Every 10 panels would be for a retired couple profile that goes to sleep at somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock, right? Because here's the biggest issue. If you don't get the batteries right, just kind of like the big mistake on solar sizing, if I don't size the system right, if I undersize it, now I'm exposed to the utility. If you don't get enough battery storage in place, you're also then exposed to the utility, but you're exposed to the utility every time it's dark in the evening time, right? So you want to have enough sun energy to meet the needs of the whole house 24 hours a day, but you also want to have enough battery storage to store all of that solar energy that's produced throughout the day. Because think of it this way, when solar panels are on the roof and sun hits them, they make energy. I don't have an acceleration button or turbo button where I can make them make more energy. I don't have a brake button that would allow them to make less energy. They're just going to make what they make, right? So when you have panels on the roof on a bright sunshiny day, the first energy that's going to be consumed is in the house. If there's surplus, that will then go to the batteries. And then additionally, if there's surplus beyond the batteries, that's what gets sent to the utility. then that's what you get 25 cents on the dollar for. So in summary, okay, two biggest mistakes that I see made in solar is not properly sizing the system correctly because you don't have accurate information. You didn't do an advanced kind of analysis of your situation now versus what it might be in 3, 4, 5 years into the future, and then a little bit of elbow room, because you definitely don't want PG&E or other utilities reaching into your wallet to grab fistfuls of $100 bills again, especially if you're doing all the work of going solar in the first place. And then secondarily to that, making sure that you've got the right amount of battery storage to bridge the dark times of the year. Battery storage is the key component. I've seen a lot of people make mistakes by having too few batteries, and then they're much more exposed to the utility every evening time because they exhaust those battery storage, and then effectively they're having to pull from the utility. So if this is at all helpful, if it's making sense, if you'd like to maybe explore solar with SolarWise and my solar brokerage company, then here's what you can do. If you take your smartphone out, if you text YouTube, text YouTube, YOU2U. You wouldn't know I do a radio show because I'm talking too fast here. If you text YouTube, YOUTUBE, to 84503, that's how you get in direct contact with us. It's our short text code. You reach out to us, text YouTube, we'll be in touch. But we'll help you sort this equation, and no obligation, no commitment needed. We just want to help you to be educated on the whole process and help you to make the best decisions possible. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, text YouTube to 84503. And also, thanks for watching the channel here. If you like the Greybeard Talks Solar YouTube channel, please smash the like, subscribe, and share buttons. You may have somebody else that this information could be valuable to them and their desire to maybe explore solar. So please like, share, and subscribe if you're so inclined. We launch a new series or a new video every single Monday at 9 a.m. And one last thing, okay, from me to you, Greybeard to you, stay charged, stay informed, and keep shining bright. I'll see you next week, same time, same place, right here on the Greybeard Talks Solar YouTube channel. Peace.
Thanks for listening to SolarWise, Greybeard Talks Solar. Please visit our website, solarwiseco.com, to learn more, and we will see you next time on SolarWise.